When people think about climate change, they always forget significant aspects that are crucial to understanding the entire issue. Most people think that it's just that the polar bears are dying and the seas are rising, but it poses a threat not only to humans but to animals all over the planet. Our lack of respect and ignorance toward animals has harmed them. But what we don't realize is that if they don't survive, then we won't survive. We cannot survive without the animals that build up our ecosystems, and their demise will ultimately only lead up to ours. My name is Nadia Nazar. I'm 16 years old, and I'm an artist and environmentalist. I co-founded an organization called 0 Hour, and we are a youth-led climate organization. These are some of the promotional graphics that I made for our past events. So I use art as a tool to create awareness on environmental issues. So I've been recently doing it a lot with climate change. So this July, our visions became a reality and we organized a global mass mobilization. On July 19th, we had a lobby day on Capitol Hill in which over 100 youth lobbied to their senators and staffers, the staffers of the senators on Capitol Hill, and we gave them the No Fossil Fuel Money Pledge, asking senators to pledge not to take money from fossil fuel corporations. Fossil fuel companies are creating corruption in our government in that they are giving money to our elected officials. And when that happens, the elected officials have to say that they don't believe in climate change, which is a problem because if they don't believe in climate change, then they can't pass climate and green legislation, and we can't pass those renewable energy acts and get those bills through, and we need to get them through now in order to save all the life on the planet. So we partnered up with Sunrise and gave that pledge out to the senators. On July 20th, we had the Youth Climate Art Festival, in which we use art and music as a tool for awareness to bring to the DC community. Ariel Martinez-Cohen performed at the festival, and we had many other performers like Chutescott Martinez, and we had different booths where people could learn about different issues. And this all culminated to the Youth Climate March on July 21st, Saturday, July 21st, in Washington, DC, and in over 25 cities all across the world, including New York, London, Los Angeles, Kenya, and more. And there were youth all over the country and all over the world fighting for their rights on this planet. As I said before, there are many factors that we forget about when we talk about climate change. And something that 0 Hour really focuses on is systems of oppression and how this is a climate justice movement instead of just a climate movement. And we really have to integrate the systems of oppression in how we perceive climate change, how climate change became. Systems of oppression has magnified all of these issues and made climate change what it is now and made it such a significant issue that we're living in. These systems of oppression include colonialism, racism, capitalism, and the patriarchy. All of these systems have built up over a period of time, and we're still in these systems. We still live in these systems. So we must dismantle all of these systems in order to fully solve climate change and achieve climate justice, in that everybody will heal and everybody will be able to flourish and survive, not just certain groups of people. So colonialism refers to when a piece of land is controlled by a more dominant power. This mainly refers to how the European imperialist powers kind of went into the global south and took over their lands, mainly for natural resources. And this was a really big problem because it exploited a lot of the natural resources, and they exploited the native and the local people there. The native and local people there already set up their communities, they were flourishing, they were thriving, but then these European imperialists came in and they interrupted their lives. Here is a photo of some of the European empires and where they were. This is how Africa was divided. These were known as spheres of influence, where different European empires would have air control over different lands, and there was a lot of competition between the European empires over resources. So racism is a really big issue in climate justice. It doesn't really relate to how animals are affected, but it impacts the people a lot. And a lot of people don't see this. People have read Zero Hour's platform, and they always ask me, how does racism apply to the environmental and climate justice movement? So they always ask me, like, how does saying the N-word like affect climate change? So those little acts of hate and those little acts of disrespect all add up into the whole system of racism, and it's created systemic racism that's been prominent for years and years, and it's still here in our society today. So systemic racism puts people of color at a disadvantage, and consequences of climate change are more likely to affect them in certain cases. An example of this is the prison industrial complex. People of color and Black people are 5 times as likely to be incarcerated than white people. And as we know, there are many in prisons, they're using prisons as labor forces, and they're paying prisoners $1, very, very low wages to clean up and do lots of dangerous work, like disaster cleanup. After like wildfires or hurricanes, these prisoners will have to go and clean up these areas for a very low wage. And it's very dangerous because all the pathogens are still in the area. It's a very like dangerous and not hygienic area to live in. Capitalism is one of the biggest systems that has contributed to climate change, and a lot of us don't really know about it because we feed into the system. We're all kind of trapped in the system of capitalism. We can't really blame ourselves. We have to hold the big corporations accountable. They're the ones that are taking control of our lives and causing all of this mess. Capitalism exploits resources, and they exploit animals. We have destroyed habitats in order to make more factories, and we're constantly making more factories because we constantly are buying more and more. There's the palm oil industry, in which forests are cut down, and there's so much deforestation, and those forests are homes for so much wildlife. Orangutans and elephants are dying in Indonesia because those forests are being cut down for palm oil factories. And palm oil is a very prominent ingredient in lots of foods and like franchises, fast food franchises. It's the cheapest oil to buy, so all the fast food franchises and lots of food products will buy palm oil instead of olive oil or other types of oil. So it's a very prominent ingredient. So we do have to eradicate palm oil and hold our corporations accountable. So consumerism is also a really big problem. There's many big problems. I've been saying that throughout this whole thing. Consumerism is something that we have normalized. We're so used to it, especially in the U.S. and in the Western countries. We're constantly buying things. We're not satisfied with what we have and what's around us. We constantly want to buy more and more clothes, more technological tech devices, and we're constantly buying more and more. And people don't really think about what's going into those things. You know, you buy a t-shirt for $5, but people don't think of all the cotton that needs to be grown, the water that needs to go into the cotton, the land that's being taken up when you grow that cotton instead of growing food. And then you have the labor that goes into making the shirt. So there's different aspects that go into making one product, but we don't think about it, and we just kind of ignore it. And when we're not aware of everything that's happening, we tend to make decisions really, really fast, and we don't really acknowledge everything that's happening. So patriarchy, we all know patriarchy as men being overpowering women, but patriarchy is also how the body that you are in affects you, kind of how white people overpowering people of color in different situations, and how humans are overpowering animals. So being in that body, that affects how you are affected, and it affects how you are affected. So there's the murdered and missing Indigenous women's movement that's going on. It's been going on for a long time. There are these landmen that guard the pipelines like the Keystone XL, the Dakota Access Pipeline. These landmen, they rape and they kill Native women on their land, and there's many missing and murdered Indigenous women out there. And when these Indigenous women are in danger, the land is in danger, the water and everything, we're not hearing their voices, and they're dying, and we really need to protect them. And there's also animal agriculture that has devastated our planet, and I'm going to get more into that in the next few slides. So animal agriculture is something that a lot of people don't like to talk about because a lot of us eat meat, right? So we want to eat meat and kind of ignore what's happening. But there's so many consequences of animal agriculture that people don't think about. And if everybody took a second to educate themselves on what's happening and take that in and make decisions based on what they know, then we would be able to make small solutions that would add up to helping save everyone on the planet. So animal agriculture has caused 18% of the global greenhouse emissions in the atmosphere. 18%. That's a lot of greenhouse gases. A lot of it comes from the methane emissions from cows. Their flatulence and their gas that cows release. It's the methane. Methane goes into the atmosphere, and the methane is a lot more powerful than carbon dioxide. And the cows can only produce so much methane, but we're really amplifying it because we're constantly breeding more animals. We want more meat, and we need to feed more people, so we're constantly breeding more and more cows. There's an insane amount of cows on this planet. There shouldn't be this many cows on this planet, so all of these cows are releasing so much methane, and we're constantly making more and more cows. So that's causing a really big methane emission. There's also a lot of deforestation from animal agriculture. Forests are being cut down in the global south to build factories and for animals to be grown, bred, and slaughtered. These factories create a lot of fossil fuel emissions, and just cutting down the trees itself is very harmful because when you cut down a tree, they're releasing carbon into the air. The whole carbon cycle, when a tree decomposes and dies, they're releasing that carbon. And so all of the animals in those forested areas pass away as well. And so there's a lot of habitat loss through that. So the trees, we need to start reforesting more and stop making so many more factory farms. Animal agriculture takes up a lot of land. We need to grow the food that we feed them, and so it takes up a lot of space and a lot of land in which we could just be growing vegetables and other foods to feed more people. Animals are also wonderful. There's I went vegetarian when I was 12. I watched PETA's If Slaughterhouses Had Glass Walls, and I immediately went vegetarian because I had a cat that I loved, and I couldn't bear to imagine her being in that situation. So animals, they do have feelings, and we not only have to save them because they're vital to our ecosystem, but they have feelings, they have families they love as well, and we shouldn't be killing them for no reason. That they're innocent, and what we've done is causing death to them, and that's not fair. So we should definitely consider them and their feelings. Just because they can't speak doesn't mean that we shouldn't listen to them. So these are some of the solutions from the Zero Hour platform. The Zero Hour has different versions of our platform. We have our guiding principles that kind of base what our movement is based off of. And we have our People's platform, which is something that you all can read to see solutions that you can do in your individual daily lives. But Zero Hour also acknowledges that we need individual solutions that we as people need to do, but we need to do solutions systematically. We need to hold our government and these corporations accountable to make change, because they have a lot of power. And if we all are doing something, if we all are trying to solve the problem, and if these corporations and the government isn't doing anything, then we're still going to be stuck here. So we really need to lobby and get out there and hold all of these big, powerful groups accountable so we can get change systematically and individually. So as I said before, all these systems of oppression has impacted how people feel the consequences of climate change. Patriarchy, racism, colonialism, capitalism, everyone is impacted differently based on your income, your race, your gender, your sexuality, and everything really intersects, and it plays a role, and that's why we call it climate justice. We need justice for everybody. So here are some of the solutions that were on there before. So definitely vote for candidates that believe in climate change and will bring climate action. Did anybody vote this past? Yay! Thank you. I'm underage, so I can't vote. But that's great that you guys all went out and voted. Yeah. So eating less meat. I know I was talking a lot about animal agriculture, and it is hard to go vegetarian or vegan, but just kind of slowly, like doing like a meatless Monday or slowly like lowering your meat intake, especially beef, as cows do release a lot of methane. So definitely kind of just lowering, because we have so many food options. A lot of people don't think about that. We have a lot of food options available right now. Divesting from fossil fuels. It's hard to do individually, and because divesting is when you take out your money and you don't support organizations and corporations that support and benefit from the fossil fuel industry. So divesting individually is kind of hard, but definitely if you're starting up a business, if you're starting up an organization, making sure that you're divested from fossil fuels, and then taking that money and investing into renewable energy, making that just transition from fossil fuel energy to renewable energy. Lobbying for bills, as we, the youth, lobbied this past July to our senators, definitely lobbying for bills that you see that are passing green and climate legislation. And there are a lot of local bills, even if our federal government isn't really doing much green legislation right now. There are a lot of local bills in our states and our counties that we could lobby for and get through, so we can make that small change that leads up to the big change. Stop using one-use plastics. Fossil fuels are used to make plastics. So plastics harm the ocean, and we need to stop using plastics. There are so many other options you can use, like reusable water bottles, and you can carry around like a metal straw and like wooden, bamboo, like utensils. There's different options there. So our People's Platform, again, has different solutions that you can do individually in your lives. And donating to climate justice organizations, helping climate justice organizations organize, rally, and create more actions that'll help out. So you can find out more about Zero Hour on our socials at This Is Zero Hour or thisiszerohour.org, and my contact is also down there if you need it. And this is our logo. It's basically saying that we have a sliver of hope left. The clock is going to keep going, and climate change is an issue that whether we do something or not, it's going to keep going. So we need to act on it now, because there's only a little sliver of hope left, and we, the youth, are fighting to make sure that we fix it before the clock goes 12. Thank you.